So here in chapter 4 of John, we see Jesus here leaving his disciples and going to a certain place. In chapter 4, verse 1, when therefore the Lord knew how the Pharisees had heard that Jesus made and baptized more disciples than John, though Jesus himself baptized not, but his disciples, he left Judea and departed unto Galilee. And verse 4 is a very important verse. He must needs go through Samaria. Jesus made a decision to go through a place that not any Jew would just walk through. There's times in our life, and if we have to be honest with ourselves, that we have got to put aside our prejudices, our desires, and our wants to go into the mission field. We've got to find where our Samaria is. Where do we have to go? And in verse 5 it says he comes into a city of Samaria called Sychar, near to a parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. And Jacob's well was there, and therefore being wearied with his journey, sat thus upon the well, and it was about the 6th hour. That's noon, the hot time of the day. And there came a woman of Samaria to draw near, and Jesus said unto her, give me to drink. Give me to drink. The first obstacle that we're going to look at this morning is overcoming the obstacle of culture. Overcoming the obstacle of culture. Now, many times we hear messages like this or statements like this when we're talking about missions in a mission conference, that we are going to another culture. And we need to know how to minister in that culture and live in that culture and communicate in that culture. But let me tell you this, as a believer in Jesus Christ, when we go out into the world, if you haven't noticed, it's a different culture. And it's very important, and the problem I think that we have sometimes is, on one hand, we're completely afraid of the culture, but on the other hand, we're living our Christian lives so close to that culture that we don't even know the difference. Jesus went to this woman of a complete different culture. She was a half-breed. The Samaritans were a half-breed culture. The Jews had absolutely no dealings with them at all. And he goes and he sits down at this well and he asks her for some water. Verse 9, the woman of Samaria said unto him, how is it that thou, being a Jew, ask me a drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. She knew that Jesus shouldn't be there. Why are you here today? And the word Jew, when she calls him a Jew here, it is not a good word, okay? It's a racial degradation of the name Jew here. She's not being nice. And what are you, a Jew, asking of me, a woman of Samaria, to give you water? Don't you know that we come from a different culture? But Jesus has something to offer. In verse 10, Jesus answered and said unto her, if thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith unto thee, give me to drink, thou wouldst have asked him, and he would have given thee living water. Jesus is coming, and I want you to see, especially early on in the chapter as we're going through it today, that Jesus is always talking about the spiritual and the eternal. And this woman's mindset early on is about the temporary and the earthly. Because look at her response. The woman said unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep, from whence thou hast this living water. She's going right to the physical. But I want you to see something very important here. She's already changed her tone with him. What did she call him early in the verses? She called him a Jew. Now all of a sudden, because of the response that Jesus had to her, she calls him Sir. Jesus responded in a proper, polite, non-confrontational way to this woman at this point in time. You know, sometimes when we go out and we witness, we sometimes aren't the most tactful at our witness. We want to take our Bibles and we want to wrap them in the back of the head, and we want to tell them that they're going to hell and that they need Jesus Christ. Well, that's a true statement. But they're going to come back with the statement that this woman did. Why are you, a Christian, telling me, a non-believer, what to do? Jesus handled that question of culture mildly, kindly, and with love, made a statement that interested her, and she responded, "Sir."